Hello again, welcome back to Harry's Jeti Clinic. This is smoke pump program number 2. You'll find I've already done a video on programming a smoke pump. I don't have any, I've never used them, but I was told by somebody what they wanted the transmitter to do, and so I set up the program to do that. It has an advantage and it has a disadvantage. What it did was use switching into a smoke pump flight mode in order to run the pump, but more importantly, when you come out of that flight mode, it's very easy then, using flight mode separate function curves, to set the signal to the pump back to whatever that pump brand wants as its off voltage, or off signal I should say. For instance, your pump might want a signal of minus 100% as its off value. Now, I've been looking at the instructions for the Powerbox smoke pump, which I guess is a very popular smoke pump, and it seems that through the ages they've used different values as the off signal. And at the latest version of the pump appears to use anything from 0 to minus 100% as off, and it only works if you're above 0. Okay, the disadvantage to my previous version, or the other version, I should say, is that because it jumps into a smoke pump flight mode, you have to have all your flap settings and trims suitable for that mode. So if you were using, say, a petrol-powered model and you're not using any other flight modes, and so it's only going between default and pump mode, that's no problem. But if you've got a model with flaps and whatever, and off trim with the modes, and you're using the flight modes to set your flaps and your spoilers, and you're using the offset trims with it, then suddenly jumping into a flight mode could be a bit of an issue for you. For instance, you might have to set your smoke flight mode with
inactivity alarm.
Be quiet, dear. The flaps at neutral, wheels up, normal cruise trim. And if you think, oh, I'll switch the smoke on during the takeoff or landing approach, and you do that, and your flaps are down and your trims are set for that sort of phase of flight, whatever, and suddenly jump into smoke pump mode, the flaps bang up, it goes into normal cruise trim, might be a problem for you. So this is writing a program that does not use a flight mode to control the pump. So you can have lots of other flight modes for landing, takeoff, whatever, and this smoke pump program is not going to affect them. The other thing I'm going to do is, for those of you who want it, is add in just a little bit of throttle mix. You don't have to put it in, it comes in right at the end. Now, I get the impression from Powerbox's instructions for their smoke pump that petrol engine models tend to want the pump coming in at about 30% throttle, or is that 30% of the pump's power? I can't really tell from the instructions. And jet models want it in at 100%. Again, I'm not sure if they mean only full throttle, or if when the pump comes on, it just has to run at 100%, because you need a lot more smoke oil going in. Doesn't matter. This program that I have written gives you infinitely variable control over the switching point and the power of the signal, i.e. to the pump, i.e. the power output of the pump. And so you can use this same program for whatever model you've got, because the switching points, the pump values are all variable totally. All you need to do is switch the numbers around. Okay, the program I was asked for was that there's a 2-position switch. I'll use this one as a main on-off switch. However, the pump would still not come on until the throttle was above 25% away from idle. And also wanted to be able then to vary the value being sent to the pump by one of the rotary knobs. In this case, I'll use P8. So basically, you have to have the master switch on. The throttle would have to come up above 25% or whatever value you set. And then the rotary knob will be able to work and set the actual value of output of the pump. Okie doke, let's get going. First things first, when you want to use two controls to switch something on or off, it can be done with mixers sometimes if you want the value to come back to 0, but the obvious one here is a logic switch. So let's go into it. Advanced properties, logical switches, and choose logic switch 1. We'll give it a label. I'll call it smoke, but I'm just going to put S for the moment to save on time spent in the video. Enable it. Come down to control 1. Control 1 will be this. I will use towards me as the on, away from me as off. So I put the switch in the off position. Go into control 1, pull it to the on position, say OK. If you'd done the switch the wrong way around, you can just clear it, put it the right way around, or you just press the reverse button. Anyway, that's what we want. I want the smoke on when the switch is towards me. Switch is on. Switch is off. Good. Come out of there. Control 2 will be the throttle. So I'll move the throttle stick. There we are. Now, that's not the screen I want. Keep pressing the proportional button and it cycles through screens until you get to this one. That is the screen I want because I can now set the switching point. As you can see, it defaults to mid-throttle, which is 0%. Fully back throttle is minus 100%. Plus. So there's two ways of doing this. I can either use the rotary dial to change that number. See if I swing it. That's the point at where the throttle movement would switch the thing on or off. Yeah? Or I can move the stick to where I feel will be the right place. And then if I press this button, it will set the switch to wherever the stick actually is. So there we go. Oh, minus 51%, near enough quarter throttle open, because minus a half is a quarter of the way between minus 1 and plus 1. But even though I've used that button to set the switch there, I can still use the rotary knob to change it around if I want. Okie doke. Also notice that the switch has gone off with the throttle below that point and comes on with the throttle above that point. Just a general learning item. If you wanted it the other way around with the switch on below that point, just press the reverse button. See, it's now on below that point, off above it, on below it. So just press reverse. There we go. Say OK. And the condition will be an AND switch, because we need both of them to be on. Not just one of them, both of them. So the switch, move to the on position, the output is still off. I move the switch off, I move the throttle up and down, so the throttle goes off and on, the output is still off. But if I move the switch on and move the throttle open, the output goes on. Okie doke. We're getting somewhere. Right, the logical switch is created. How are we going to manipulate the control now? Right, well, obviously we're going to need a smoke function and a smoke servo. So we'll go to Model, Functions Assignment. We'll add a function. Say OK. And it will be allocated to the rotary knob that we want to use. So press that, swing the rotary knob, say OK. Lovely. And servo assignment, you could press auto or manually go in and do it. I'll just press auto, assign automatically. Yes, so smoke's on channel 5. I can plug my servo into channel 5 for the demonstration. Say OK to that. Now, if we have a look at the servo, it is responding to P8, the rotary knob at the moment. So this is the sort of signal you'd send to the pump. But it would need to be anywhere back there is off, and anywhere up there is on, and at some proportional value. Okey-doke. So let's have a think about this. We're going to fine tuning, function curves, down to smoke, and now we only want the knob to work in the upper half of this, so we'll change it to a 3-point curve, come down here, press the dial, and we're into this. Now if I swing the rotary knob, you can see what looks like the gun sight. That shows you the position of the control and the servo as well, they're going together. You'll notice that there are 3 points. One of them has a black dot in the middle and a circle around it. That indicates the point that will be changed if we change the rotary dial. But if I press the rotary dial, it will step through each point in turn. See, it's now that one. Pressed again. That one. Pressed again will come out. Highlight around. Pressed again will be back in. Okay, we don't want minus 100 for the rotary knob because that would be deep into the off switch. It's only going to work in this bit up here. So we'll bring that up the quick way. Oops, daisy. There. Move to that one, and we'll take that up to 50. And there we go. Say OK to that for the moment. Now let's look at the behavior of the servo, which is indicating the value being sent to the pump. That's the knob all the way back now. So the servo isn't rotating into the back half there. So it's going from 0 or off up to full power. And I've got the whole rotation of the knob to work with. Say OK to that. Now we're going to go into the dual rate and exponential. I'm going to go to the smoke, and we're going to say that if the smoke pump switches are off, in other words, when either the master switch is off or the throttle is below here, in other words, our logic switch, then we just take the rate to 0. So we come down here, switch. We're not going to wiggle the physical switch, we're going to choose our logical switch, S. Say OK for the moment, shall we? Well, there's the switch is on, which means the pump is running. There's the switch off. Let's reverse that. Say OK. See, what will happen now is it works in reverse. The reason being, if the logic switch now is in the running position, the rate will be 100%. But when it kills it, I want the rate to go to 0. There we go. So, what will that do? That should allow us, if the master switch is on, the throttle's above the trigger point, if I rotate the knob, it will go like that. Lovely. But if I switch the master switch off, it locks off. I'm going to rotate the knob, nothing happens. I'll switch the master back on, I have control. What happens if the throttle comes below that 25% throttle point? It locks it back at the off position. Good. We've got the behavior that we wanted. And that will give you your basic setup. Remember, if you want the throttle switching point to be at a different point, just go back into the logic switch where we set it at -50, go into your throttle and just change that switching point. If you don't want the smoke to come on unless you're right up at the top end, change that switching point from -50 to something like plus 95%. There you have it. totally infinitely variable switching point. And when you want to, having got the pump running and the smoke's coming out, you just turn knob 8 until you get the output value that you want. Say OK to that for the moment. And let's say that you have got, go into this, and we keep coming down. You see it's where we are. If we say OK for the moment, come back out, I'm going to go to servo monitor. And we're on channel 5. You can see the output there going from 0 off to whatever. Suppose you've been flying around at your throttle setting and you've found that wherever you've put the knob, that's the ideal level of smoke output you want from the pump. Come in here and have a look at that. It says 81%. So what we're going to do now is lock it at 81%. Change it from a 3-point to a constant. Come down here into this, and now it's a level curve. Turn it to 81 or whatever value you found you wanted. Say OK. Now the knob still works, but every position of the knob, because it's a level curve, is 81% output. Say OK to that. Now let's go and look at our servo. The logic switch is on, so I've switched smoke on, but I'm rotating the knob now and my pump is locked at 81%. But should I come back below the throttle switching point, it goes to the off position. If I switch the master switch off, it goes to the off position. And there we have it. Now, just suppose you fancy a little bit of throttle adapting that exact position of the curve. Not a problem. You know, just suppose you come back off the throttle a bit, you want a little bit less pumped into the smoke, or you want a bit more. I don't know. I've never used these things. Go into mixers, add from throttle to smoke. Lovely. Come down to advanced. And we only want the mix to happen when the pump is running. Because we don't want to be, when it's supposed to be locked in the off position, we don't want the mix to be varying that off position. So of course the switch is going to be our logic switch. Logical switch. There it is. And we only want the mix to be active when the logic switch is on, so that's good. And now set some value. Let's, out of curiosity, just set that. And there you will vary. So master switch is on, throttle's above 50. Remember, the knob doesn't work anymore because we've established a sort of ideal value. But as I move the throttle, you get little variations. There, it's gone off because we've come below quarter throttle. As I vary the throttle, you get little variations on the mix. And if you want, you find, of course, that mixes vary about the neutral point, although the throttle will have taken a throttle low position. Come back into focus, please. Thank you. You can come over here and adjust the curve, because there's our mix at the moment. We don't want it to go negative, that's fine. You could adjust the curve here if you really wanted to. But you don't need the throttle bit in it, that's just a tiny bit of fine-tuning. So I hope this has been of use to you, and we'll see you at another video.